From the world of AV programming and control with James King, I'm Steve Greenblatt, and this is Ask the Programmer. Hey, James, I'm glad we're back, and we have a special guest with us today, and I'll let you introduce him.
Oh, yeah. Great to be back with you, Steve. I don't think this guest needs introduction. Everyone should know Joe Way. He's everywhere. If you don't know him, you must be under a rock or a programmer in the dungeon coding away. But we welcome Joe Way to the show.
Hey, thank you very much. And, it's not about me. It's not that people don't know me, but programmers, I don't get in the programming world. So you probably have a bunch of people who go, wait, what? Who's this? Oh, yeah, I just see his ugly face on things. And I don't care. I'm like you said, in the dungeon doing your coding and stuff or whatever it is you guys do.
So with that, why don't you share a little bit about for those that don't know, Joe Way is at USC, but tell us a little bit about your role, your background, and then we'll bring some context to this discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am Joe Way, and I'm the Director of Learning Environments at the University of Southern California, which means that I oversee the design, installation, and support teams for about 500 general use spaces across the enterprise. I got my start. I've actually been in higher ed for just about, it's weird. I was trying to figure it out. In a month, it'll be 6 years in higher ed. It's kind of crazy. Where I was at Cal Baptist before USC. So about 3 years and 3 years. And before that, I worked in the business development side of the entertainment industry for pretty much my entire career, 25 years, and left that in a wonderful vertical of higher ed, which I absolutely love more than everything. And no matter how much I try to run away, for some reason, I get captured right on back. And it's awesome. And also, of course, I do host the Higher Ed AV podcast for the higher ed vertical and the media company. I guess it's now a company now, of which James is one of our monthly contributors. So it's all articles focused on higher ed in the vertical there. And then I guess I'm also the chair of the Higher Education Technology Managers Alliance, HETMA, which is a group that is an advocate for the higher ed vertical within the greater AV industry. I consider us, let's say, the business arm of the higher ed side, as opposed, even though we're a community, but we're there to advocate for the things we need and be a voice for our $8 billion vertical.
So that's actually where I was hoping that we would spend some time, is talking about HETMA and what was the thinking behind HETMA, and because I look at HETMA, I mean, one with a lot of admiration, and I feel like it's not only grown significantly, but it's really filled a void, and it's also been something that has established a voice. And these are all things that James and I are really behind when it comes to programmers. So can you give us a little bit of context or some of your thought process there, and maybe what we can learn from that in terms of applying it to the programmers community?
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that, and the funny thing is I get this question all the time, like, what made HETMA a success and so fast? And I'll be honest, I'm still putting my finger around it, right, and trying to get my thumb on that. But here's what came about originally because the co-founder and I, BC, who is my counterpart at Vanderbilt, we were on a vendor trip where we were asked to just give some product reviews, right? And you think it's a dog and pony show, right? You're just doing your vendor management, and it's a dog and pony show. They're going to take you and, listen to this, take you to dinner, but give us your impact. It's really just so you come back and buy a bunch of their stuff, right? It's the way the industry works. But what threw us off was 3 months later, like after we gave all of our advice, and this is what you should do, and this is how we would use it, as they came back to us and said, hey, can we fly out and come to your campus and show you the changes we made that you guys suggested? And we're like, wait, what? You listened to us? I thought it was just a dog and pony show. And from that point, we realized, well, wait a minute. And they actually did it. They came back, they made the changes, they said that, and you're like, well, what if we could take that and we could do it on the macro level? And where we could actually drive what it is that we need. Because I mean, the difference in higher ed, yeah, we are quote unquote end users, but a big difference with that is that we are, while we are customers, we have customers of our own. We're in this weird middle place of integrator, right? Where we like to call ourselves in-house integrators, but yet we're not really integrators, yet we kind of are. And yet we're not end users, yet we kind of are. So we have this strange, it's a weird place we sit within the AV industry. But I also think it's an area of opportunity. And it's a very unique area where we can help drive product, where I tell integrators, like, you should love us because we're helping your manufacturers make stuff that we will buy from you. Okay. And they love us because we're helping driving product that they can now sell. Right. And that's what everybody wants. I want products that serve my need on my campus, and they want stuff they can sell. It's a win-win across the board. And when we started talking about that and going, because there are a lot of great organizations that serve our vertical, but we recognize that the void, finally getting to your question, the void was it, how can we actually talk about our needs? How can we have a voice within this? Not just supporting one another, but how can we have a voice? And that's what happened. And soon as we came out with that and said, we want to be able to say, really to the entire industry, we have needs that basically will help everybody. If you can solve our problems, you're going to win all the way around, from manufacturers to end users to integrators to consultants. And I think that was the lightning in a bottle. And then you took the special part about higher ed, where we are not competitors. We say this internally among ourselves, that we are not competitors, where, James runs the incredible Slack channel for our vertical, and where we can get in, and if you want advice and you want to say, hey, I've got this esports thing I'm about to do, anyone done it? You'll get 50 different comments going, here's what I've done, here's the case study, here's this, here, let's connect. But you won't get a major integrator who has an esports go call their competitor integrator and go, how did you do this? Right? It makes us very unique in that sense. And so we pulled those aspects together, and that's what became the lightning in a bottle. And we recognize from so many different sides of integrators and manufacturers and consultant and other end users and other end users and other verticals coming to us going, this is crazy. So to answer part two of your question, what is that? How can you do that for, your people, your programmers? I think the key to what has made HETMA successful is the fact that there's a void that only you know how to fill. No one else can tell you how to fill that void. Only you know it. The hardest part is then actually putting your finger on what is the void. I think we got lucky. And we've said as HETMA all the time that the word I used for years, first 2 years of it was, we're slow rolling it, because I thought, this might be the stupidest idea ever. And yet it ended up turning into an incredible thing that gave value. And I think for, programmers, you are the only ones who understand the daily problems you go through. And so to connect that to one another is really how you build the community. Use your common pain points as your launching point.
I think, that really is, I think, the value that any organization brings, trying to address a pain point and trying to provide a solution to somebody's need. One of the things that I admire a lot, and James, you can, pitch in here, is that the pride that people take in wearing that HETMA badge, and how it's all of a sudden taken people who may have been in the background before, and are now coming out and saying, I matter and I mean something and I'm part of this, and here's my tribe. And that's, again, I think that's what I envision programmers can benefit from, difficulty might be, and I don't know if this is accurate or not. We have to find out. But the difficulty with programmers may be that they're not as social and they're not as outgoing. And although get them in a room, they're going to talk. It's just getting them out to get them in that room.
Oh yeah, I mean that's one thing great about the HETMA, and like Joe was mentioning about the Slack group, is the community. The people are willing to help each other, and we put the questions out there. You know, we get out our shells and we talk to each other. And I agree. I think that's a hard part on programmers, because by our nature we are secluded in the dungeon, typing away on our keyboard. So getting them together and getting the voices out there is difficult, I feel.
Yeah. Question for you. I mean, so I'm going to jump in here. I'm going to take over your show because it's what I do best in life, is take over things. But what's interesting is I actually think there's a lot of parallels where there might not seem to be. Just because I'm loud and obnoxious, the average tech person is not, right? Most of us get into this industry because we are introverts, right? And maybe programmers, at least by stereotype, are probably even more so, right? But in general, tech IT people are introverts. I'm the rarity. You guys are the rarity. You're doing a podcast, but I think a lot of it is going to where the people are, right? What has made HETMA successful is because we do, going back to the pain point, but we go, where are you? Where where do you live? And you live in your daily struggles. So how we can pull that together. And what I found, and I'm sure you probably have exactly the same thing, but maybe you have or haven't recognized it. You're coming up on a year in this thing now, right? I mean, I remember the first time, like on my podcast, where I thought, okay, no one listens to this dumb thing, right? I mean, like, it's like myself and my mom. I don't know who the other thousands of people are, because I see there's thousands of downloads, but it's my mom must listen 5,000 times, right? And yet I remember showing up somewhere and then people going, oh, I just thank you very much for what you do. Or I heard you say this. Or they go on Twitter and like Joe said in episode 34, like, I don't even know what I said in episode 34. How do you remember that, 2 years later? And it was like, wait a minute. I'm reaching people just because they're not vocal to me and I don't know the face and the handle doesn't mean that it's not bringing value to people who need to hear it. And I think that becomes the same thing for you all with the image of their back underneath in the dungeon, as all AV people belong in the basement. That's where our offices are, right? Hey, I'm an 11-story building. Only one of it's underground and it's my floor. Okay. So that's where, like, seriously, there's 11 floors of windows and I get the one without. But I think that that's okay, right? As long as you're reaching the pain point and saying, look, here's where we're going to connect, where people are listening to you all and you're having impact that you don't even know because you're having the conversations that they're thinking. And then being able to now grow that is kind of the next step, right? And then how do you capture that, which I think is also another thing of how HETMA came about. I mean, HETMA also wouldn't have existed if it weren't for the podcast. Right. It took one thing to then create another, because it was like, okay, I've been a voice out there speaking, but it goes into the ether, right? It was always one directional. When it's a podcast, it's one directional. Every now and then there's the comment on Twitter, but that's really still only one directional. And so how can you communityize that? I'm going to make up a word. And that's really what HETMA did, is it took a platform and turned it into an advocate.
That's a great recipe. So that's where we definitely feel we're headed. And but I'm glad that you see the parallels there, because I do as well. And I admire how much of a difference HETMA has made, and it still has so much more room for growth. There's so many people that need to know about it, and that voice is only going to get larger and larger, and it's very healthy for the industry, and which is again where we're headed as well. There, we want to bring attention to those who bring value and those who are making a difference, that are underserved community, like programmers.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. And I think what's interesting is that there's a time which is kind of cool about HETMA recently. And I don't know, James, if you've noticed the same thing. And I feel like I need to do more with it. But the people who come and join, the fact I don't recognize their names, and I've never heard of that school before or whatever. And I'm going, wait, how do you know about, wait, what's going on here? And because it really was a community of like, it wasn't like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. It was like 2 degrees of Joe Way. Like that's what it was for the longest time, right? There, you just got an episode title. But now it really is 6 degrees of, right? It was so-and-so told so-and-so, my rep said this. And as I'm getting, I'm having conversations all day with manufacturers and they're like, yeah, so I was at this local thing over in Dallas. And I ran into someone in higher ed and said, do you know about HETMA? And I told them, I pulled their cell phone out and took them to hetma.org. And I'm like, oh yeah, literally just had someone from Dallas join hetma.org. I'm like, that's crazy, and which is awesome because that means the industry sees the value, right? Mm-hmm. And that not just helping the people, but, to me, that also is how many people can benefit and is there value behind it? Because if there isn't value behind it, well, there's plenty of other orgs that have value. So why am I even staying up late and doing all this stuff?
Yeah, I'm with you there, Joe. As you said, there's tons of people I never saw their name jumping in before, never seen the school, which is great. And the value is there because the membership for higher ed people in HETMA is free and will always be free. So it's easy to join, but they're being active. They're commenting. They're getting involved. We got the approval program going. We got the PRISM scholarship going. And there's actions being done. So that's more than just, hey, I'm signing up for this free service and I'm going to sit as a fly on the wall. The members are actually becoming active on it, which is very awesome.
100%. 100%.
So what do you think what's the tipping point, I guess, as we're wrapping up, what was that one thing that pushed it over the edge, do you feel?
Oh boy. That's a tough one. Because I think that people join for different reasons. If I'll give you my input, but I'm very biased. So just take it for what you want. I think our tipping point was Infocom. I think that was where we legitimized ourselves. It existed for years. Well, really not 2 years, 2 years before that or whatever, but still, Infocom coming in force, being there and saying, hey, we're ready for this and we're ready to represent our vertical and these little green thingies that I've got here. This is it. This is what's going, that we're going to carry this badge, and then coming out with the PRISM scholarship that we're proud of, to be able to give 10 scholarships to underrepresented demographics within our industry that work in higher ed, and full, a VIXA membership and mentorship and a trip to Infocom to learn, mentor, be certified. I think that put us on the map, I should say, even though we existed before. I think that legitimized us. I think the official thing is when we became an official 501c3. I mean, that would be when it really became an org. But I think Infocom was it, if I had to say it.
I agree, Joe. And when I said I was with HETMA, not at the beginning, but close to the beginning. And I agree. I think just seeing people like Tim Van Werp would say this too. Him and I were walking on the floor and people would stop us and go, what is HETMA? And we'll explain. And they're like, you guys are everywhere here. And those badges, Lexus special color banner, stood out. I saw vendors handing them out. I saw manufacturers handing them out, wearing them with pride. So yeah, I agree with you. Infocom was the tipping point, and the prison scholarship, as I go back to, is action, not just words.
Yep, absolutely.
I can't tell you how many people asked me, and when I was wearing the ribbon, what it was. So I think that's completely on target. So which tells me that there's a lot of room for growth, especially outside of the higher ed community. So looking at who are the advocates and who are the people that want to build, you can build around you.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
Well, the way I see it, there are 5,500 higher institutions just in the United States. They probably have an average of maybe call it 8 employees ish, probably per institution, some bigger, some smaller, which means if we've got a membership of a little over 1,000 right now, we can grow 40 times. And that's just in the US. So we got room to grow.
nice. Imagine that at Infocom, huh?
That's a takeover.
There you go.
Well, I think Joe, it's been a pleasure to have you, and I think we'll be hearing from you again soon. How can people get in touch with you, learn more about HETMA, learn more about what you're up to?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they can find HETMA at hetma.org and hetma_org on all of the socials. And you can find me at Josiah Way on all of the socials.
And he's always available and always good to have a conversation with on Sunday mornings too. So, James, how can people get in touch with you and learn more about what you're up to?
As always, you can reach me at on Twitter, AV_James King. As Joe mentioned, I write for the Higher Ed Digital Magazine where I do the IT and AV column. I am involved with HETMA, so you can find me over there as well. And Sunday mornings, talking with Steve and Joe on AV and AM.
Absolutely. And for me, you can reach me at Steve Greenblatt on social media. I do some writing for AV Network and my company blog at controlconcepts.net, and also host a State of Control on avnation.tv. But I want to hear from you out there. And those of you who are part of HETMA, please chime in, at least give us some likes or retweets or share this episode. And to Joe's point, we have to build around serving a pain point. So let us know what that might be for you so that we can make sure that we're bringing that to the forefront for us and making sure that we're taking the right strides to address it. And you can find this podcast on Apple and Google Podcasts, as well as on YouTube. So please tune in and leave us a comment and a review. And if you would share it, we would be forever grateful. And with that, this has been Ask the Programmer.